Good morning, CPAP Bunner again. It's the early hours of the morning. I've just come home from work recently, and I was just reading Australian news. You keep saying the same thing that uh, people turn their back. The Liberal Party turned their back on the ETS and carbon trading. If so, they're not the only ones. And let's see who else turned their back on the ETS. And one particular person postponed it completely for nearly 2 years before he got stabbed in the back by Julia Gillard. And his name was Kevin Rudd. Do you remember? Former Prime Minister of Australia. Got to about 2.5 years into his first term, got slaughtered and knocked in the back by Julia Gillard in the cabinet and members of the trade unions. Why? Well, popularity based, Kevin Rudd went down the toilet, so to speak. And so the Labor Party decided they needed someone else. And mainly it was because one of the reasons that I know of is because Kevin Rudd virtually dropped ETS down the toilet and postponed it for 2 years because it got defeated in the Senate twice. And not only got defeated in the Senate twice, it was also newsy, and don't forget your mates the Greens voted against it in the Senate as well. So there's someone else that turned their back on the ETS because the level that the ETS that Kevin Rudd wanted to introduce was not as virulent, you might say, as what the Greens wanted. And so they voted against it in the Senate. Penny Wong, Julia Gillard, Kevin Rudd, Wayne Swan, Greg Combay, Tanner, quite a number of leading Labor politicians just prior to the last federal election said no to carbon trading. Wasn't going to be. Now, was it? Now, who did you say would turn their back on the ETS and carbon trading using? I can't seem to recall. You said the Liberal Party, didn't you? Well, apparently, so is the Labor Party, Newsy, and did so just prior days before the last federal election, last August. Oh, did you forget that? But suddenly after the federal election and the Labor Party needed those extra seats, they did a deal with the Greens and a couple of independents. And of course, the Labor Party went to the last federal election without a mandate on carbon taxation or even an ETS for that matter. And those are their own words, came from Julia Gillard, herself, and Wayne Swan. Let me quote Julia Gillard again. No government I lead will introduce a carbon taxation. Wayne Swan repeated those same words that same day or a couple of days later. Got up and said it was a scare campaign by the Liberal Party. Well, apparently the Liberal Party was correct in their assumption saying that Julia Gillard will indeed introduce carbon taxation, even despite her denial, because that's exactly what she's done. Now, Newsy, she went into that election without a mandate on carbon taxation. You can't suddenly afterwards decide, oh yeah, we have this mandate. No, you don't. No, she didn't. She didn't have that mandate. And Labor Party supporters themselves took her at her word and voted for her. So Conservatives took her for her word, though they didn't vote for her, of course, and neither did the people in Oakeshott and Windsor's electorates. They didn't vote for her either. So who's lying? Who turned their back on carbon trade and ETS? Easy. Who postponed it? The Labor Party doesn't seem to understand what it's saying. And it's the voters in this country are standing there or sitting there looking at Julia Gillard and saying, well, why isn't she listening? Why is she telling lies? Why has she changed her mind after the election when prior to the election she continued to say no carbon taxation? She even turned her back on the ETS. Now this is your side of politics, not mine, Newsy. And what were you saying about Malcolm Turnbull, Malcolm Fraser, John Hewson? What were you saying about them? What were you saying about the Liberal Party and John Howard? Funny about that. And let's not forget too, Newsy, that over the last couple of days or more or less, 4 countries have decided to ditch the Kyoto Protocol. Let's see. Japan, Russia, United States of America, and China. 4 of them, mate. 4. You know, 4? That 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think it was Windsor and both Oakeshott have come out and said unless there's a consensus, they won't vote for carbon trading either. A consensus of other major countries. I could be incorrect about that, but I get what they said. That's for our major trading partners, Newsy, or at least 3. China, Japan and the United States, and possibly Russia to some extent. But, okay, we're calling for an election on this one. Why shouldn't the Australian taxpayers have a say in how we're going to be taxed, Newsy? Why shouldn't we have that say? And as once more proved that this government, this minority government, doesn't have the authority or a mandate to introduce carbon taxation. They didn't enter the election with a, and consequently retain government with a mandate on carbon taxation. And there's nothing you can say or do to change that. They entered the fray last year at the federal election and had no mandate on carbon taxation. They didn't ask for one, nor did they seek one. They repudiated the whole deal. And there's nothing you can say and change to make that any other way. Because if you are, then you're signing on to a lie. Because the lie has already been told by Julia Gillard, Wayne Swan, Penny Wong and so forth and blah blah blah. Greg Combay. There was no mandate in this government, this minority government does not have that mandate to introduce carbon taxation. If they want this carbon taxation, if they want it, then take us to a federal election and let us, the people, decide. Not some half-witted politician down in Canberra. Not some wolfhead like Flannery. Not someone like Ross Garnaut. But we, the people of Australia, you and I, mate, we decide. Bring it to a federal election. We decide. Not a minority government, but the majority of Australians voting in an election to say, yes, we'll either back a carbon taxation or no, we will not. Simple. Anyway, mate, have a good one. hey, I want to see you on videotape too. Okay, I want to see you on YouTube, face to face, mate. Anyway, Newsy, good luck to you. Bye.